Your Majesty, Your Excellencies, fellow advocates, distinguished guests, good morning. It is just perfect to be here today in Den Haag, a city that once was badly damaged in conflict, then rebuilt. Like phoenix rising from the ashes of destruction, The Hague has become a symbol of both 1945 promise of peace, security, and justice. Yet, we are here today because the global justice has gone blind. We have broken the promise. All of us here today are aware of the unprecedented crisis facing education due to war and displacement. The figures speak for themselves. 1/4 of all school-aged children in the world now live in countries devastated by conflict. Education is a casualty of war. But even more horrifying, attacks on education are frequently used as an instrument of war. In most conflicts, from Colombia to Yemen, education is deliberately targeted. Schools are burned down. Teachers are murdered. Students are recruited as child soldiers. But statistics are like shadows. They only hint at the human horror that they reflect. They cannot quantify the loss of hope in children nor the sullying of their souls. And we must not allow ourselves to be normalized to these statistics. Instead, we need to constantly remember them. For those who attack schools are not just damaging walls or infrastructure. They are inflicting lifelong trauma on hundreds of millions of children, depriving them of a future, robbing them of dignity and humanity, blunting civilization. I want to share with you very interesting information I came across as I was reading a book about the new research findings on the effects of trauma. Now we know that trauma can be passed on to successive generations. It alerts certain genetic codes and hormones in our bodies in a way that we can pass it to our children. So, by traumatizing millions of children today, in reality, we are traumatizing generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, I have dedicated more than 20 years of my life to protecting and providing education across the globe to the most marginalized children. And when I set out, I was optimist and idealist. But a transformative journey has changed me into reluctant realist. Progress that has taken years to develop can be demolished in an instant when conflict erupts. Take the example of Iraq. After the occupation in 2003, Iraqi scientists and educators were being targeted as a way to destabilize the nation. They came to us, desperate for protection. We did everything we could to help them. We even provided them with bulletproof vests. But one by one, they were all killed. Look at Gaza. After more than 40 Palestinian children and their teachers were killed in their UN-run schools in 2009, we spent millions helping to rebuild education facilities and opportunities. And what happened? In December 2014, many of these schools that we helped to rebuild in Gaza were destroyed again. So much work and so many young lives and dreams wiped out, and without consequences of those responsible. Perhaps one of the challenges is that the word education does not evoke what it truly aspires to. For the meaning of a school is infinitely greater than the sum of cement and discs. It is an incubator of children's souls and minds. It is the building block of their dreams. When it's gone, what is left is a dark void. A void that reverberates to the sound of bombs and gunfire. A legacy of violence and hopelessness, as the child's future is lost forever. A child's future takes years to build. But when conflict breaks out and when a school is bombed, it is not only bricks that crumble, for bricks can be replaced. But what can never be replaced is the hearts and the futures of children. Ladies and gentlemen, we are gathered here at The Hague to discuss how to reform the institutions that are failing to protect the world's children. We must channel our righteous anger at this destruction into responsible leadership. Now, more than ever, we need to reassert our common goal to protect education during war, to provide education even in conflict and insecurity. This is when it's most difficult, yet most urgent, to build sustainable peace. So, what can be done? First, we need to prevent attacks on education. We need to make children safe as they learn. This requires adherence by all to the international laws, resolutions, and principles that aim to protect education. Adherence to these laws must start from the top. Because right now, the perpetrators of crimes against education are not being held to account. Why? Because our international institutions are being paralyzed from doing the job they were set up to do. To preventing conflict and humanitarian crisis. The Security Council is the body charged by the UN Charter to ensure international peace and security. Yet, it is broken in exactly those situations where it's needed most, to hold to account those who commit grave violations of international law. As an example, let us take Syria, where at least 4,000 schools have been destroyed since the conflict there began. I'm certain we all remember the appalling crime when dozens of children, teachers, and parents were killed in an airstrike on their school complex in Idlib province last October. Yet, the Security Council failed in its duty to unite, to collectively condemn this atrocity, and to ensure accountability for these crimes against education and children. If the masters of the world are not actively pursuing peace, we are stuck in a vicious cycle of destruction that we, as the global community, are destined to lose. For we simply cannot rebuild at the base at which infrastructure is being destroyed. Instead, we watch through broken windows as the big players continue their deadly card games, recklessly gambling away lives, changing the rules with every round, flipping and shuffling their cards to suit their strategic interest. With apparent disregards to the fires raging outside. But this is not a game for the grieving parents of Idlib, nor for the girls still being held captive by Boko Haram in Nigeria, nor for the millions of children around the world in refugee camps robbed of their chance to learn. We need the masters of the world to put the pursuit of peace and security before their game playing. The UN Security Council should be using its power under Chapter 6 of the UN Charter that allows for the peaceful settlement of dispute without resort to violence. It has the power to investigate, establish facts, make recommendations to the parties, and refer dispute for further action and resolution. Yet, time after time, important resolutions are vetoed. Indeed, since 1946, Security Council resolutions have been vetoed on nearly 200 occasions. And with each veto, an opportunity to prevent conflict and establish peace is lost. Instead, the masters are playing out their great game at the expense of the most vulnerable, the children, who they should be protecting and depriving them of their future. Ladies and gentlemen, let us together call for greater transparency, accountability, and the responsible use of veto to promote security and peace. To those who think that they can attack schools, students, and teachers with impunity, we should join together and say, we are watching you, and we are determined to gather evidence and use law to hold you to account for the harm that you cause to generations of children. Of those of us who have been entrusted with the vision of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, let us reassert that education is the cornerstone of sustainable development. And you cannot construct a building if the cornerstones keep getting destroyed. Nor can we construct a durable building without investing in education as a tool in post-conflict recovery. Those delivering the World Aid Development Budget should recognize the long-term value of investing in secure, quality education and acknowledge the potential of education to prevent and heal conflict, as well as build resilience within communities. My Education Above All Foundation has been working for almost a decade to protect education and to provide access to education for millions of children. What we see wherever we work is that putting education at the center of development, and by working with multi-sectoral approach to all our projects, lives and communities are improved in many ways. Allow me to give you an example of one of our projects, which is providing access to primary education, but also using that education as a catalyst to build financial skills and income generation for the wider community. We are working with local partners in Bale, Ethiopia, where poverty is a major barrier preventing children from going to school. So we help the community develop micro-enterprises that in turn pay for the running of their schools. Schools are given seeds, for instance. The parents then grow crops that can be sold, and the proceeds sustain the schools and its activities. So not only can the children go to school, but the parents are also developing new financial skills, community cohesiveness is improved, and the school becomes self-sustaining. This type of access to financial literacy is something I know that Your Majesty is rightly working hard to promote as crucial to achieve the vision of our global goals. Both education and skills building are now known to improve post-conflict recovery and prevent societies falling back into conflict. Ladies and gentlemen, in the midst of destruction, education brings the promise of renewal and a better future. I would like to tell you about a boy I met recently. A boy who refused to allow the most extreme destruction extinguish his ambition. I was in Sudan visiting a school being supported by my foundation, Education Above All. The school works with displaced children due to conflicts. And those children also, they've been missed out on years of lessons. So as I walked through the school, one boy caught my eye. He was around 10 or 11 years old. He was sitting beside some remarkable mechanical inventions he had made, such as solar-powered cars and electric flagpole. And as I admired his inventions, I noticed a model of a house next to them. It looked a little out of place next to these mechanical things. So I asked him about it. His answer astounded me, because he gave it with total, absolute certainty. He told me, "This is the home I will build for my family one day." So here's a boy who had fled from war, who had seen untold horror, who had left his home with absolutely nothing, and today, thanks to education, he's living, he's dreaming, and he has a chance to realize his inherent potential. I was struck in that moment that only education can transform lives in this way. So, despite my anger at all the destruction, seeing the impact of education on this one boy renews my determination to ongoing fighting. Despite my exasperation, my belief in the transformative power of education will never waver. I will continue to fight, and I will continue to seek out opportunities to plant the seeds of children's future, even in the most violent or desperate of circumstances. The situation of attacks on education is dire, but we cannot become desensitized of human suffering. We need to channel our anger into intelligent, sustained action. There's so much we can achieve when we join forces in partnership and purpose. We need all of the bodies meeting here today, NGOs, activists, humanitarians, international entities, to reach out to those with power and to the citizens of the world, to make them aware of the crisis we are facing in the protection of education globally. We must call on those in power to live up to their values and responsibilities and invest in education that will ensure resilience and flourishing societies. Let us commit to public advocacy as an engine of change. Let us remember that the roots of change always emerge through grassroots activism. Let us live up to our values, the shared human values peace, security, and justice, upon which this wonderful city was rebuilt. Let us embody the words of the 16th century Dutch humanist Erasmus, when he said, "The main hope of a nation lies in the proper education of its youth." Thank you very much.